Welcome to the Shift Ed podcast and video series. My name is John Hamlin with the Greater Victoria School District here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, home to the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation, upon whose land we live, we learn, and we do our work. The Shifted podcast and video series is geared towards conversations with classroom teachers around how their practice has shifted in innovative and exciting ways since the onset of the global pandemic. Even though there's been some pretty significant challenges and hurdles to overcome as we get our schools back up and running again. The focus of this series will be on highlighting some of the really unique and exciting shifts that have been occurring in classrooms all across our school district and all across the province. This is episode number 2 of the series. Last week, we spoke with Martha McKay from Vic High, a modern languages teacher who showed us the innovative practices she's been engaging her students with in her Spanish classes. This week, we're talking with Tim Spray from Oak Bay High. Tim's a math teacher, but not a conventional math teacher, or at least from what I remember a math teacher being when I was in high school. If you were a little fly in the wall in Tim's class, you'd see a lot of students getting up and down, a lot of talk, a lot of chatter, and a huge amount of engagement with the lesson at hand. Tim will be sharing some unique perspectives and some unique tools that he's been using in his class, and we'll share all of the links in the show notes below. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple Music or Anchor FM, we'll be sharing all of the tools, links, and resources in the links to the show notes as well. I hope you enjoy episode number 2. Please feel free to share a voice message or some feedback. You can visit us at anchor.fm/shift-ed. If you can't remember that, check out the link. It will be below. Hope you enjoy episode 2. Take care. Just before we get started talking to Tim Spray, we're going to acknowledge that this Zoom meeting is beaming to you live from the land of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation, on whose land we live, we learn, we work, we Zoom, we have fun, and we communicate in cyberspace. So this afternoon, we're having a quick chat with Tim Spray, math teacher, department head, digital math guru extraordinaire, founder of Math Beacon, a fantastic line of math teaching resources. And we're going to learn a little bit more about what life has been like teaching secondary math in this remote learning environment since the onset of COVID-19. So, Tim, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this afternoon.
John, my pleasure. Let me know how I can help.
So I'm really curious about what your practice shift or lack thereof, because I know you already were quite heavily involved in an online platform with your class, but what shifts have occurred since the remote learning period began for you?
Well, of course, the greatest shift is just not seeing our students, which it's not anything I'd ever want to be part of long term, and I can't wait to be back in the classroom interacting with students. So, that has been challenging. I would say the offering that we've been able to put forward at Oak Bay has, there's been a variety of offerings. At the Math 12 Calculus level, we were able to cover all the outcomes in both those courses. And that's because of probably a lot of the online tools we were able to utilize. So that being, we use Google Forms to get to know our students, to regularly communicate with them. We would ask them on a almost, certainly a weekly basis. With my students, it was a daily basis where they'd fill out a quick form saying how much time were they putting in, was the workload too much, was it reasonable, do they have any questions? And from that, we were able to then create videos to respond to their specific questions. And backpedaling, I guess we use Zoom, or there's so many online video tools you can use to share your lesson, whatever that was. So we had a wide variety of offerings. Myself, I would offer maybe a 10-minute contextual piece where I try to help them understand where are we going, what are the big ideas, which is how I run my classroom anyway. And then from there, they followed through a self-directed PowerPoint or Google slide presentation that they would walk through. I encourage them to work with other students on that. And in doing that, the feedback from my students was it was about as smooth as it could be. I mean, honestly, though, I've been sort of running this in my classroom for a while, so the shift wasn't that dramatic. The big change, the big loss was just that personal interaction that the students had with each other, which, I'm just going to say that my offering of mathematical instruction now compared to 5 years ago is about the same. Like, I think online or not, it's the same. It was no big deal at all. However, the fact that my students couldn't work with each other on the problems I've just learned that the main goal, the thing I'm most proud of, or the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning, is helping the students interact with each other and learn to communicate. Much more than anyone can teach someone how to do a little bit of math, but how do you help people learn how to do math with other people? That's a challenge, and that's something I certainly have enjoyed.
Having been in your class, I've certainly seen that collaboration aspect and how important that is. Have there been any new or adjusted ways you've been using your digital platforms to increase that type of remote collaboration for students?
Well, at this point, what I'd love to say I was able to do would be, connect kids with each other, where they'd be working with each other in small groups on their own time. That hasn't happened this year. Maybe if we get deeper into it next year, I will use one of the fantastic tools like Flippity, or Zoom has the breakout rooms. So that's something I have not done, and that's mostly because my students felt so supported by the PowerPoint, pre-made videos, supports, the option to ask for help, and then I'd make a video, or one of my colleagues would make a video. They just felt so supported that we didn't have a lot of in face-to-face stuff, which I lament. That's what it's all about, is the face-to-face, not just with me, but with each other. So perhaps through the Zoom breakout rooms, or perhaps through creating opportunities for them to connect with people would be nice. Because the main thing that I observed was that so many of the kids just were feeling kind of either bored or lonely, or they wanted to see a face and do something meaningful. You can only watch so much Netflix or play so many video games before you're like, okay, enough already, let's do something.
Yeah. So just to, for people, in case they're interested, just go over which are the main digital platforms you use in your class.
For sure. So thanks for asking that. And really important question. To start off the year, believe it or not, I would use, I guess for my ed, believe it or not, has a use. And that is that it has photos of the kids. So that's the first thing I would do, is look at that, make sure I know all their names, make sure that I'm connected that way. And then, then I'm not going to touch my ed until report card time. But after we've done that, we're going to use Google Forms to get the important information we need to know from kiddos. Who are they? Do they have math stress? Are they looking forward to the year? What are their concerns? So Google Forms is essential. I would be using Google Forms, probably once a unit at least. If they're with my own students, I would use it every day as sort of an exit tool for the lesson, giving me feedback, formative feedback for myself, so that I can then respond to the needs of the individual or the class. So that would be Google Forms. Of course, you need to know how to use Google Sheets to organize and manage that. So that's an important tool. The delivery of the content would be through, I use Zoom. Google Meet can do the job. That's how I made my little videos. I don't know if we are able to record through Google Meet, and that's the reason I have not used it at the time when I had to make that decision. So I am using Zoom at this point, and I make a quick video, I share that out. How do I share that out? Through Google Classroom. Google Classroom is a great way to organize myself and the students and help them be ordered. I like to use on Google Classroom. I like to make almost all of my posts an assignment. And the reason I do that is just so that students can click turned in after they've read it. So even though they're not doing anything. They're not creating anything. I might say, I don't know, how does it sound to have the test on Thursday? Here's my rationale. Click turn in once you've read it. So then I know whether they've seen this important information or not, because we all know that email isn't working for kids. They don't check it enough, or they're just so inundated that they can't sift through all the information that they get. So yeah, Google Classroom is fantastic. You know, I couldn't offer my program without Google Slides, and that's where I help organize the kids, organize my lessons and my work for them, and I do that in and out of class. Let's see that. I would use GoFormative for assessment. Great tool. You could use Google Forms and Flubaroo as well, though I would lean toward GoFormative at this point. You know, let's see. Gosh, there's so many things, so many little things. You know, I would assume that math teachers are aware of Equatio. It's the best online equation editor, and it also syncs with Microsoft Word on the desktop platform. And you know, John, I've written all the Math Beacon workbooks through Microsoft Word, so I know Equation Editor very well, and I will never use it again. So that's great. You know, there's lots of little tiny things that you know, they'd be probably more advanced sort of tips and tricks, but I think those would be the major things that would be interesting for people to look at to support online learning. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Thanks. Just talking specifically about kids, and then maybe you haven't had any, but have you had any kids kind of fall off the radar during this last little period? It seems like most people, there's been 1 or 2 kids in each class that have kind of just fallen off the radar a little bit and been hard to get a hold of or track down or maintain communication with. And if so, what have you been thinking in terms of, you know, supporting those kids on the periphery?
John, again, that's the probably the most important question you could ask. Our weakest learners are our students. You know, when I look at my class list and I have 30 students on my roster, and I ask who has the angst or who hates math or whatever, maybe that gets whittled down to 3 or 4, and then that's my class. It's not the other 26 or 25 or whatever. The number doesn't matter. The students who are struggling, those are our students. That's where we pour our time in. Now, the problem is, of course, is you pour the time in and you don't know if they're responding or whatever. And so every child has their own story. And I guess how I want to interact with that story is just to let them know that I am there. I'm available. There are always opportunities to sort of get engaged. I don't want to hold any kids back by, you know, just giving them zeros or giving them a hard time for not responding. The fact that they're not responding is sort of just telltale sign that something else is going on that frankly is more important than the curricular contents or things that I'm trying to teach. And so, yeah, I want them to learn math, love math, and I think the best thing I can do is just to be gentle, kind, and gracious to what they can put forward. When it comes to, you know, reporting out on someone who has done, you know, nothing, you know, that could happen. Well, again, every child has their story, but if they've truly done nothing, then we're pretty hard pressed to do anything other than to report that. You know, if a child, maybe it's a different situation where a student is very capable. In fact, we know they can do it. In fact, we know they've done it. They just haven't showed us that they can do it. Again, that's a time where we have our professional judgment to make a decision about where we really think they are, even if they haven't handed in or given us concrete materials. Look, we all have a brain and we all have a sense of where someone is at, and so we can use those senses to, you know, perhaps assess at a higher level than the paper, than what they've handed in may suggest. And so that's certainly happened with a few of my students. In fact, I had a student who was skipping my calculus class to read math books, okay, but he wouldn't write any tests. So am I going to give him 0 on these things because he's too bored to do it? That doesn't make any sense. And part of being I would hope as math teachers that we like and appreciate accuracy. And so to give that child a 0 is inaccurate. And in good conscience, to my values and in good conscience to numbers and what numbers mean. Giving someone a zero doesn't make any sense. So I can't do that. What is that number? Well, again, it's going to be dependent on maybe even a conversation with the kid. I don't know.
Yeah, thanks. Last question. I know you're a busy guy outside of work and you've got 3 kids of your own. So how did you find time to find that balance to take care of your work responsibilities and manage back in the early days when I'm sure your kids were at home and you were trying to juggle everything there? So what skills did you employ to make that work?
Oh, look, that's been the toughest part about it. I have 3 kids, 8, 6, and 3. My 2 boys, who are the elders, are in French immersion, and that je ne sais pas, formidable. I'm not a French speaker naturally, so that was really, really, really challenging. I would always say it's much easier to teach 30 grade 9s last block on a Friday than it is to manage 3 high-spirited, lovely little ones. And so anyway, my day, because my kids rise early, we were kind of doing our learning from about 8 till 9:30, and we focused on sort of reading, writing, and numbers. Fortunately, their numbers were reasonable. Mind you, it's never easy to teach your own kids, especially as the content area specialist. So that can be a challenge, but fortunately I was blessed in that. I found the writing and the reading of French challenging, but I would sort of go 8 till about 9:30 with my own kids, and then from about 10 till noon on my own. My wife is a nurse, so I often had all 3 of them at home by myself. Yeah, it was tricky. Duolingo was helpful. We didn't do much TV, believe it or not. My wife often said I should have done more, but yeah, we did very little TV. If looking back, maybe we should have done more, but we just had the kids running around our house, running around outside, and our property's all fenced in, so that was safe. But look, we had the opportunity because my wife was a nurse to send our kids back to school, and we opted for that because it was a lot. It was a lot to manage everything. Honestly, the least of my challenges were being prepped for my high school students. That was just because of the way I've run my class for the last year and a bit. It was just a very straightforward transition.
Yeah, you were well poised for that shift.
Well, as you know, I predicted COVID about 3 years ago. There's an algorithm that I created. And I was off by 2 days, actually, when it really peaked. But pretty proud of that.
We'll see you in the next press conference with Bonnie. Any last tips, suggestions, pieces of advice for district math teachers?
Yeah, so I guess for me, it would be we are in unprecedented times. This is going to be a blip in our careers. So feeling like you have to have everything perfect, that you have to have your assessment perfect, that you have to be concerned about, are your marks too high because maybe kids are collaborating. I think we got to let that go. Don't lose any sleep over that. My attitude has been, look, if the kids are collaborating on assignments or projects, fantastic. Like that's great. Are my results this year as secure as last year? No. I'm not going to police that. I'm not going to chase it down. Let's just try to help kids do math, help them enjoy it. Let's get away from the percentage focus of where are they at, what are they. Look, that would be the biggest thing. Is we need to lighten up a little bit on the marks thing, and participation is great, and self assessments. Get the kids assessing themselves. Are they proficient with these outcomes? And each outcome, can they do it? Yes or no, from their own voice. Do they think they are ready for the next level? Like we should be asking this all the time. Can the kids? Do they feel ready? shouldn't be a number or a percentage that says you're ready because of this percentage. You should be ready because you're aware that these particular outcomes are essential for grade 10 or for grade 11. And the child should be able to say, I can do those. I am ready. Not, oh, I have 73% or 92%. It's not helpful. So that would be it. Lighten up on assessment, put more on the kids in terms of self-reflection, and just let them know you're there for them. That's what I'd say.
Thank you so much for your time, Tim. It's always great to hear your enlightened thoughts and hear what's been happening in your world. So thank you so much for taking the time to share.
My pleasure, John. Thanks for putting this together. I hope that it's helpful for everyone.